Fans, welcome back for another week of Working Fans Wednesday, episode 11. I'm producer Joe. I'm going to be joined shortly by AJ Strangebrew, the man they call Dave, and Daniel Bakley, and we're going to talk a little Wrestle Kingdom as Now, guys, you can find us on Twitter at FansWorking. We are on Twitch, also at FansWorking. Facebook, we are the Working Fans Podcast page. Email is workingfanswrestlingpod@gmail.com. Instagram, at workingfanswrestling_pod. YouTube is www.youtube.com/c/workingfanswrestlingpodcast. The website, www.workingfanspodcast.com, and the Patreon, if you want to screw with that, is www.patreon.com/workingfanspodcast. Our podcast, our comedy podcast, that is, releases every Tuesday. Our wrestling podcast releases every Thursday on most podcast providers: Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcast. Check us out wherever you can. Now, we are brought to you by 482 Designs. That is FOUR82designs@gmail.com. You can get stickers. You can get shirts. Kevin will print them up. They are beautiful. We are also brought to you by WrestleTopia. Check out WrestleTopia on Facebook, at WrestleTopia on Twitter. Now, support for the Working Fans Podcast is brought to you by Manscaped. Manscaped, sorry about that, has precision engineered tools for your family jewels. It is the best out there. They've got the Lawnmower 3.0. They've got the Crop Preserver. They've got everything. You go to manscaped.com and use the code WFP2020. Now, guys, today we are going to talk a little Wrestle Kingdom. We're going to bring in the man called Dave.
Oh,
Dave, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. I'm fired up and ready to go.
AJ Strangebrew is on break at work. AJ, how are you doing tonight?
Guys, I'm coming to you straight from the Capitol, where people are a little upset about Legends Night on Raw.
And we got friend of the show, Dan Bakley. Dan, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good. Just finished binging Wrestle Kingdom and New Year's Dash, so I'm ready to go.
Now, also, guys, Mainline is going to be talking Wrestle Kingdom this weekend, but what were your standout matches of the 2 days, would you say?
Let our guests go first.
Dave, take this one first.
I have a couple. First off, I can think of World Ospreay and Okada. That was a really good match. Just everything, seeing World Ospreay kind of wrestle differently than what he usually does. Usually you see a lot of flips and kicks and everything, but this was more of a slow-paced match for him, in my opinion, and it looked better to me than in matches past for him.
I agree. I liked one thing I didn't like, just a preference. I love the match, but I was kind of really pulling for Ospreay just because I was hoping we were going to eventually set up for an Ospreay Kota Ibushi match. I got half of what I wanted, so I'm hoping still down the road that, that's a possibility.
Sorry, guys, because of where I'm at, it was a little bit choppy there for a minute, so that's why I wasn't actually talking at all. I agree with you. I think that match was absolutely phenomenal. I think Ospreay really showed what he could do in that match. I think the combination of the two of them, even though I picked the clear winner, I thought that it did a great job of actually showing us what Ospreay can do and where his future lies.
I think it was a nice ascension into the heavyweight picture because typically when he's on those dome shows, he's that early junior heavyweight match, and he's known for the crazy flips, the jumps. And I thought he really established himself as a main event player in New Japan in this match.
Yeah, definitely. I actually took AJ's advice and watched that documentary, and in that documentary, he mentioned that all those guys are known for the high flying action, but it takes the wear and tear in their bodies. So maybe he watched it over, knowing that, and decided that he needs to change things up so he can better be ready for the later years.
Every wrestler that has longevity eventually learns how to modify their style.
Thought too, jumping a little bit ahead, but like not to jump ahead tonight too, but just because involving the Empire, I really enjoyed Cobb and Shingo the next night too. And I thought it was interesting. You know, they both had competitive matches. Same with Okan. You know, but they all lost. And I feel like, okay, maybe this is part of a greater story. Hopefully, that's being told. And I know they were successful at New Year's Dash, so I'm hoping that we'll see more of this group because I'm really not only impressed with Ospreay, but I'm impressed with Cobb, and I'm really liking this group of the Empire too.
I like how they played off Cobb's injury and how he had to switch things up with the Tour of the Islands on the second attempt, where he kind of had to do like a sidestep slam to try and pick him up again, and then that gave Shingo a second chance to break out of it.
You know, it's funny, real quick, I just want to say, sidebar, like, one thing I really enjoyed when we started talking about New Japan last week, I was like, okay, I'm going to make sure I catch both shows. And because I worked so late, I was able to be up when these shows were going on. I wasn't able to watch full all the time, but one thing I really noticed that jumped out, I love the storytelling and the selling in New Japan matches. It's so combat sports-like. When Ibushi gets the pin on Naito at the end and he wins the match, and then afterwards, he goes to pin him again, and the ref's like, no, you won the match. It reminds me of like a UFC fight where a guy gets knocked out, and maybe he's still going for the takedown. He doesn't know. And I loved it.
As much as we love the American style of wrestling also, sometimes it's too smooth. It looks like almost like they're dancing together, and you can tell that they're working together. Whereas in the Japanese strong style, the thing I've always enjoyed is the fact that it has that combat feel. Things don't always go graceful because in a fight, it doesn't go graceful.
And one quick follow-up, too. The announcers, like with Hiromu, he was going for this long run in the second night against Ishimori. And it was clear Ishimori was already standing up. And Hiromu is, obviously it looks almost a little silly. He's going to try to hit him. But the announcers were right on it. They're talking about the glare of the dome lights. And he can't see where he was located. And I thought, oh, what a great way to cover that up. And I was like, I really enjoyed that, too, that aspect of it.
I think Kevin Kelly's been an underrated announcer for many years. Even back in his Ring of Honor days, I think he doesn't get the credit that he deserves because he comes from old school WWE. I don't think he gets the credit on the independents and in Japan that he deserves.
I even like how Rocky Romero does, like, how he's gotten a little bit better each time that he does commentary with Kevin Kelly. He goes in there, he kind of, not like a Jerry the King Lawler type, but you can tell that he shows a little bit of bias in his commentary. But I like how he works with Kevin Kelly.
Yeah, they make a great team.
Yeah, and everything I think on this Wrestle Kingdom card, as far as the bigger matches, felt like big fight feels, and they felt like battles. That was a lot of my notes for like Hiromu, for Okada. I just was like, when you go to these last three matches of the night, they were just bangers. Yeah. And that's something I don't think we see in American wrestling as much now.
Well, to go back to what Dave was talking about, I thought the Cobb match was actually one of the show stealers. And the reason why is it just was such a tight, strong, hard-hitting match with great psychology throughout the match. But a lot of the matches on the card had that similar style.
Yeah, if you look at the Hiromu Ishimori one, that's been like a long building feud ever since the pandemic came back, and it always centers around an injury that Hiromu has. And the first 2 times, Ishimori won because he would use the left arm injury to his advantage. But this time, I think they played it off well with the hand from night 1, where obviously El Phantasmo had something in his foot. You just don't know what. And then he played off of that, but then they kind of built it up to where Hiromu finally got the better of him in this match. And then got the belt.
A lot of the storylines throughout both days were easy to read where the storylines were coming from, even if you weren't necessarily following the product. So I think they do a great job of telling the story in the ring and developing the stories since COVID actually came back.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of the results you expected, but the way they told the story was beautiful. And you're like, all right, that's where I logically saw it going. And you don't see that a lot in wrestling, where the place that the story should go, it ends up going.
Absolutely. That's the big thing that's missing from a lot of the WWE storylines right now, is where it should be going in the end of a story or what they should be building towards never actually makes sense. Whereas everything from New Japan over the last 6 months has been building towards this and has come to fruition, and it actually made sense at the end of the card.
I don't always agree with Brian Alvarez, but I heard he made one fatal mistake. He had just watched New Japan night 1, and then he watched Monday Night Raw like right after. Oh. That seems like that would have been a big mistake to do.
Oh, yeah. You can't compare those back to back, because New Japan is just a level above anything I would say that America's putting out.
Especially that particular Raw was very disjointed, and the storylines weren't really making sense. It looked like it was literally thrown together like 2 minutes before the show. So to have that, and you just watched, these long build stories that ended so beautifully. Yeah, that's tough.
Yeah, I'm not gonna touch too much base on this because I don't want to be pissed off before going back to work. But
take it out on the dishwasher. They love it.
Oh my God, they do love the Lucha Libre. Thank God. I talk to them. No, that's not a stereotype. I actually talk to them about it every day. Believe it or not, that's it's actually something we discuss on a daily basis. Well, I tell them they can't wear their Perro Aguayo mask and they get pissed. But as Dave knows, we talked about Raw right afterwards, and I had stayed up both nights till God knows when in the morning to watch the cards. And Dave knows how pissed off I was Monday night by the time I watched the end of wrestling.
Yeah, there's a lot of good wrestling this week. We're going to talk later. There's like AEW and NXT both have great cards. MLW has a nice card tonight too. And then Wrestle Kingdom night 1 and 2. There's like a lot of great wrestling tonight this week. It just won't be on Raw.
well, the funny thing is that all 3 of the promotions tonight, and yes, I said 3, MLW, AEW, and NXT, all have storylines that are coming to fruition in these shows this evening. Whereas, when's the last time you see that anywhere in WWE TV?
I mean, O'Reilly and Balor, for me, that match would hold up in a Wrestle Kingdom. That is just a hard-hitting match they had. And now we have this build-up again where we're getting this rematch. And it's based off of, too, some legitimate injuries Balor suffered in just a hard-hitting match. So
even your Damian Priest and Killian Cross is coming across like, hey, they took a week off so he could rest, and now he's back and right back into the fight.
Couple horses.
Exactly. Everything in there. The women's storylines, the way they've built up Rhea Ripley with freaking Gonzalez, absolutely phenomenal.
Hey guys, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves.
Sorry, my bad.
Let's play a Manscaped commercial real quick, and then we'll get into tonight's cards. Remember, that's code WFP 2020. AJ, why don't you tell them about a couple of those products real quick that you love using?
Oh
And then
God, you
tonight,
know how
W code.
you know how fired up I get about Manscaped. That's you got to keep the ladies happy. That's you use the ceramic blade on the lawnmower 3.0. Don't settle for the 2.0, guys. You got to spend a couple extra dollars on the 3.0. Use the tonic. You got to use the reviver, which doesn't work as well on your head, but works really well down below the border. That's you take the cleanser. I use it up in the shower, so I'm smelling nice and fit. There is not a product in there. I have a carry-on bag that I bring with me to work so that at any time during the day that I'm feeling not so fresh, just a little spritz and the ladies are happy as can be again. You can feel the same way. All you got to do is use the promo code WFP 2020, Working Fans Podcast, WFP 2020. Get over there. Save yourself 20%, and trust me, the ladies will thank you.
Now, Dave,
Yeah.
you and me, I think, are especially excited for tonight's Kings of Coliseum card. Dan, are you as familiar with MLW?
Not right now. I'm just starting to get into it. Like the pandemic kind of ruined it for me.
Sure.
And I have to get back into it because I started to before it, and I liked the product that I saw, but now I got to reintroduce myself to it.
Yeah, it was hard with that drop off. They gave you content, but if you're not a diehard fan, you were just getting little pieces of like the past. Now, AJ, are you familiar with tonight's Kings of Coliseum card at all?
I know a few of the matches on it, and I'm going to say something real quick about MLW. They, to me, come the closest to reminding me of the New Japan style of wrestling out of any of the American brands. They have a tendency of having matchups that are more about sport than they do. They do have storylines, don't get me wrong, and the storylines are great, but it comes down more to the sport of wrestling, and it means a lot more to me that way.
Now, I'm going to let you know what they have tonight. We got the Von Erichs versus the Dirty Blondes, Texas Tornado tag match for those tag straps. Dave, who do you feel is taking this?
Oh, that's the Von Erichs all day. That's a match that's set up for them.
Hell of a match.
Yeah, it should be fun. That's a match that's set up for them. We had cheap plug. We've had Ross and Marshall on our show before, and they described their wrestling style as a ballroom brawl. So that's what they like to do. That's how their dad and their uncles used to wrestle. It was just a fight back in the Texas days, and that's kind of like what this is going to be. That Texas Tornado rule style. It's going to be a ballroom brawl atmosphere, and I think it's a showcase for Ross and Marshall right now.
And you could check out an interview that we did last year with Dave and the Von Erich boys in our archives at the Working Fans Podcast. All you got to do is plug in there, look back. You'll find a tremendous interview where they talk about their family. They talk about what's going on in MLW. It's a great listen.
I'm still jealous that I couldn't be there for that interview.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Other big matches tonight. We got Lio Rush's debut versus Myron Reed for that middleweight title. That is a fight that I am hyped for. I think what they've done with Myron Reed is out of hand, and finally putting him up against Lio Rush, I got to give it to Myron Reed because MLW is doing a good job of building their homegrown stars. That's
going to be the match of the night, probably, for MLW. I think Rush and Reed are going to kill it.
I love the Reed kid. I think he's fantastic. His skill set is phenomenal. And I love the fact that Lio Rush is finally focusing back on wrestling again and has got his stuff together. Lord knows the WWE took it out of him.
I was just going to say, I feel like he got rejuvenated once he got sober, and not to go away from this. I watched the challenge. We actually just interviewed one of the people on there, and I talked to him off screen, and he mentioned that on the show, Leo seemed to be focused because he's not focused on drinking anymore, and he seems like a different person now, which I really like a lot because then you see his true personality and not just like personality from drinking.
Might be one of the fastest guys in pro wrestling too. Just the way he hits moves, like the speed. He's definitely one of the quickest.
I feel like he's super underrated too, because when he was in ROH, he was showing us some tremendous skill. And then NXT, you're like, holy shit, they got Lio Rush. And when he went to the main roster, it's like, we didn't get to see enough of him. And that's why I'm excited for this return.
No, they almost turned him into a freaking secondary version of Teddy Long, for Christ's sakes, coming out there and just hyping things instead of showing off what he can do with his wrestling ability.
And
If
then
he
he got,
was still in WWE, would he be a part of the Hurt Business?
I don't think so, because I feel like when he got sent back down to NXT, you started to see a little bit of the old Lio Rush.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they just decided to get rid of him.
Right.
Even though he had gotten sober and got better, you're like, okay, this is the Lio Rush we expect. And then all of a sudden, like I just said, it was gone in an instant.
I agree. In the beginning, when NXT started going live, and you had NXT versus AEW then, a lot of people were very concentrated on AEW. But if you were watching both shows, particularly those cruiserweight matches, Lio Rush was involved in the beginning, were very entertaining and kind of reminiscent of the old WCW Nitro days. Like, it just had a fire with the crowd and everything. I was really liking Leo's work when he went back to NXT. But then,
hey, our number one fan just brought up a good point. Randy Osgood mentioned Hammerstone might actually steal the show tonight too.
Yeah, him versus
Awesome.
Matt Kruger. That's a fight they've been leading to since the restart, and I think that's going to be a banger. I don't see Hammerstone losing that title.
a lot of house fights tonight.
Like a wise man once said, that's going to be a slobber knocker.
All right, buddy. Stealing those lines.
Now, AJ, how much time do you have before you got to get back to work?
It looks like I got about 9 minutes, so let's keep talking. And
9 minutes. Let's move it along, because I think we covered the MLW show pretty well. AEW,
I think we cover MLW more than anybody does.
and we hope to cover them more. Now, AEW, they're coming off that tremendous Brody Lee tribute show.
Yeah, awesome show.
What are you guys most excited about for tonight? For me, it's got to be Snoop Dogg on commentary.
Fuck out of here.
Thank you for mentioning the thing I'm looking forward to the least.
Yeah. One quick note, not the match I'm necessarily looking forward to.
Hey, that sizzle on the steak that I like.
I'm enjoying a certain aspect here of all these shows. Go back to the Wrestle Kingdom show for just a second. Cobb and Shingo. All right. MLW, Hammerstone, and Hans Kruger, which we know is Logan Creed. Now we're going to this, like, Wardlow and Hager tonight. And, there's going to be one of these too on NXT later. There's kind of a return of, like, these big man fights, and I'm excited about that.
I like the fact that these big men are far more athletic, though, and are actually able to be multi-dimensional. While it is a slobber knocker, their athleticism's out of this world.
They even made, I don't know if you guys saw it on Wrestle Kingdom, they made a mention about seeing Brody King more on New Japan. I know isn't he still with Ring of Honor? Or because I've seen him on there, I've seen him on NWA, but he's been a mainstay on New Japan Strong almost every week since then. And they made it a point to mention his name after the Shingo Khan match.
Yeah, I
filmed John Moxley in that New Japan USA ring, and because I had asked Tyler Peters, where does he see that John Moxley match falling? He said he didn't know, and I'm like, I feel like they're gearing it up for USA. It feels like they did certain things during Wrestle Kingdom to point to a USA run for that.
Yeah, that dojo's in LA, so I hope they're not doing it for New Japan Strong, because they've been filming a whole bunch of episodes of that at a time, and then so they don't have to have all the wrestlers there because they go to Japan. I'm hoping they save it for like maybe a Japanese pay-per-view, maybe like August, where they're supposed to be in Madison Square Garden, maybe, because they did push that back a year from what it was supposed to be this August. So that would be a guess.
One thing I want to ask before we forget too, AEW tonight. Do you think tonight might be the night we see some Impact stars show up at AEW. Kenny and the Good Brothers jumped the Machine Guns and Rich Swann on Impact last night.
Yeah, last night.
So I'm wondering if at some point are these Impact wrestlers, are some of them going to make an appearance? Kenny's fighting Phoenix tonight. I think that there's an opportunity maybe for Swann to get involved.
That's definitely something that could come to fruition tonight. I wouldn't be surprised at all. At some point you have to, because right now they're making the Impact guys just look weaker to the Good Brothers and to Kenny Omega. So at some point you either have to have a retaliation or you end up with what the WWE did with the WCW, where they had the invasion. They just got their ass squashed. There's got to be some return.
And then they did have Tony Khan do that, what was it, the commercial thing for Impact, where he welcomed anybody over, and then you saw Sami Callihan with the tweet saying, "Oh, really?" So I'd be interested to see if he makes an appearance on AEW.
Another thing that's interesting is last week we talked about something. We talked about Marty Scurll, and we talked about the misbehavior and where he could be at for Ring of Honor. He was actually let go this week by Ring of Honor, both from the booking, completely released from his contract. So that's another person who I don't know if they're going to want to touch, but that's another person who could show up on either Impact or AEW or even New Japan.
I don't think now. I think maybe down the road, maybe a year down the road, I would say the companies are going to be a little cautious to sign him just yet.
But
I heard NXT has, I'm not NXT, WWE has no problems with looking at him. I heard because he hasn't been found guilty of anything yet that they have no problem looking at him. I hear mixed signals from AEW, but it would be nice, maybe not now, but 6 months from now, AEW would sign him and then have him be the new leader of the Dark Order, because he is the villain.
Can we just say, isn't it nice that WWE gives zero fucks about any of this stuff? Everybody else is like, I don't know if we should do it. WWE's like, whatever.
As long as you're not caught with steroids, the WWE has no problem with anything you might do.
Yeah, they don't care about the accusations. They're like, you guilty?
You haven't been wink twice if you're guilty. All right, we cool.
Matt Riddle's been in a lot of trouble too.
Now he's got to get back to work, so let's land this in a nice spot tonight. We're gonna end with NXT.
Yeah,
I would say arguably we're probably more excited for AEW. What do you guys look forward to see on NXT?
I'm actually really excited about this NXT show. That O'Reilly Bauer match. I don't know. Again, that was one of my favorite matches all year last year.
Sorry, Dave.
I was going to say, also, I've been talking about house fights. And I know this might not be an attractive thing for women to want to hear, but I don't ever remember two females like this. Ripley and Raquel Gonzalez been built up strong, two powerful women that are going to lock up in the last woman standing match.
We've got two matches on that card. The two matches you were just talking about, where people are gonna leave with blood coming from somewhere. Whether it's a smashed mouth, whether it's an accidental broken nose, whether it's bleeding the hard way, it's such as two smash mouth matches that are so intense. Somebody's gonna get their ass whooped.
Yeah. And that doesn't even count Cross and Priest. That could happen there too.
Oh God, yeah. That's you talk about. That's three matches. And the funny thing is, we're talking about O'Reilly, and we're talking about freaking goddamn, Balor.
Finn Balor.
And the funny thing is, as much undersized as they are compared to even the women, they actually hit so freaking hard that they're just as much smash mouth as the other two.
And I feel like I know the outcomes of each match, but I don't care because of how they portray him during the match. Like we already saw O'Reilly and Finn Balor before, but I think that they're going to top that. And even though inside I know Finn Balor's going to win because of the promo he cut on Scarlett a few weeks ago, where he said, "When Cross is ready, Finn will be ready." And then. Even with that, I'm still excited for it because they put on a great match last time. And then you got like I said this to a few people last time. I was like, I really want to see a Priest Cross. I didn't expect to see it this soon, but just their styles, it's going to be really good to see them tonight.
I think we can all agree too that Scarlett is just straight fire.
100%. Now, AJ, before you go back to work, what is your match of the night tonight?
My match of the night tonight, without a doubt, is going to be Balor versus freaking O'Reilly. I don't see where that match can go wrong. I love the whole NXT card, don't get me wrong. But that match is just going to be absolutely insane, and two of the best workers in the world, quite frankly.
Awesome, man. Have a good night, brother.
You too.
Dave, match of the night tonight. Who you got?
All right, this covers all three cards. I'm going to, on a rare occasion, agree with AJ. I am super excited for O'Reilly and Balor. I think that is the match. And I don't want to, like, by the way, I'm super excited about what AEW has tonight too. But my close second might actually be that last women's standing match too. I'm also really excited about that one.
Awesome, man. Dave, have a good night. I will talk to you later, brother.
Clear.
Dan, who you got for match of the night tonight?
See, I hate to do this, but I'm going to have to agree with them with O'Reilly and Balor just because of the technical aspect of it. Kyle O'Reilly has that technical feel, and I think he works well with Finn Balor. I do like if you take both nights of AEW, because this is going to be night one of their show, and then next week, if you include next week, I might have said Darby Allin against what's his name, but that's next week. So I'm going to go with O'Reilly and Balor.
I know my match of next week has got to be Cody versus Matt Sydal. I watched some YouTube stuff with them, and just the buildup had me hyped. But if you're asking me this week, I've got to say it's got to be Balor and O'Reilly. Now, Daniel, thank you for joining us this week. It was great to talk to you. Have a good night. And we're gonna end real quick here on a Buzz social media.